In the sultry summer of 1996, the music world was in turmoil. Tupac Shakur, the iconic rapper known for his provocative lyrics and fiery activism, was at the height of his fame and influence. His fans loved him, but there were others who had a more sinister interest in him. Tupac's life was a whirlwind of controversy, and he had often predicted that his life would end tragically. The night of September 7, 1996, had been a hot and tense one. Tupac had just finished watching a Mike Tyson fight in Las Vegas. As he drove away from the MGM Grand, his car was ambushed by an unknown assailant. Bullets tore through the vehicle, hitting Tupac multiple times. He was rushed to the hospital, but the wounds were too severe. On September 13, Tupac Shakur succumbed to his injuries, leaving behind a gaping hole in the world of music and activism. The immediate aftermath was chaotic. Rumors swirled like a hurricane, with speculation running wild. The biggest question on everyone's mind was, who was behind the murder of this legendary artist? One theory suggested it was a gang-related feud. Tupac was no stranger to the gritty realities of the streets, and he had been associated with both the Mob Piru gang and the Southside Compton Crips at different points in his life. Some believed that an old rivalry or a score to settle was at the heart of his death. Another theory pointed to the record labels. Tupac had been vocal about his disputes with his label, Death Row Records, and its co-founder, Suge Knight. He'd also been vocal about wanting to leave the label and start his own. Could this desire for independence have painted a target on his back? Then, there were whispers of a personal vendetta. Tupac was no stranger to controversy, and he had a history of public feuds. Some believed it might have been a result of a personal grudge, perhaps involving a romantic entanglement or a dispute with another artist. As years turned into decades, the case remained open. Interviews were conducted, leads followed, and yet, the truth remained elusive. Tupac's murder was like a shadow, always lurking, but never fully revealed. The music industry lost one of its brightest stars, and his fans continued to mourn. The void left by his untimely death was never truly filled. The question still lingered: would we ever know who killed him? Who stood to benefit from his death? Dwayne "Kef D" Davis, a former member of the Crip Street Gang, was arrested and indicted on one count of murder on September 29, 2023, for his role in the 1996 killing of rapper Tupac Shakur. Davis previously claimed in 2018 that he was inside the car from which the fatal shots against Shakur were fired, but that the gun was in the hands of his now-deceased nephew Orlando Anderson. Davis was indicted by a grand jury in Clark County, Nevada, and is in custody, according to prosecutors. The arrest comes after the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department executed a search warrant at a home in Henderson, Nevada, in July 2023, in connection with the rapper's unsolved murder. One of the top-selling artists of all time, rapper and actor Tupac Shakur embodied the 1990s gangsta rap aesthetic and, in death, has become an icon symbolizing noble struggle. Tupac began his music career as a rebel with a cause to articulate the still relevant travails and injustices endured by many Black Americans. The boundaries between his art and life became increasingly blurred, as Shakur faced legal problems and jail time. On his fourth album, All Eyes on Me, Tupac leaned fully into celebrating the thug lifestyle. It was the last album Tupac would live to see released. On September 7, 1996, the 25-year-old was gunned down in Las Vegas and died 6 days later. Police continue to investigate his murder. Tupac Amaru Shakur was born Lassane Parish Crooks on June 16, 1971, in New York City's Harlem neighborhood. His mother, Afeni Shakur, had been a political activist and Black Panther Party member who was arrested in 1969 for allegedly planning coordinated attacks on police stations and offices in New York City. She became pregnant with Tupac while out on bail, and she was acquitted in 1971 after defending herself in court. When Lassane was 1 year old, Afeni changed his name to Tupac Amaru after a Peruvian revolutionary who was killed by the Spanish. She said of the name, "I wanted him to have the name of revolutionary, indigenous people in the world. I wanted him to know he was part of a world culture and not just from a neighborhood." Tupac later took his surname from his sister Sekiwa's father, another Black Panther named Mutula Shakur. Tupac also had a stepbrother, Maprem. Tupac's father, Billy Garland, lost contact with Afeni when Tupac was 5, and he didn't see his dad again until he was 23. "I thought my father was dead all my life," he told the writer Kevin Powell during an interview with Vibe magazine in 1996. "I felt I needed a daddy to show me the ropes, and I didn't have one." Raising Tupac and his half-sister alone, Afeni worked as a paralegal before developing a crack cocaine addiction in the early 1980s. The family had to move often, struggling for money and living off welfare because she couldn't keep a job. In 1984, the family moved to Baltimore, where Tupac enrolled at the prestigious Baltimore School for the Arts, where he said he was the freest I ever felt. This was also where Tupac met the future actor Jada Pinkett Smith. He wrote poems about her, and she had a cameo in his music video for Strictly for My Niggas. Pinkett Smith later told reporters that she was a drug dealer when she met Tupac, and that she resented the way the movie All Eyes on Me, 2017, later reimagined their relationship. It wasn't just about, "Oh, you have this cute girl, and this cool guy. They must have been in this." Nah, it wasn't that at all. It was about survival, and it had always been about survival between us. Tupac's Baltimore neighborhood was riven by crime, so the family moved to Marin City, California. It turned out to be a mean little ghetto, according to Vanity Fair. It was in Marin City that Afeni succumbed to her crack addiction, a drug that Tupac sold on the same streets where his mother bought her supply. Her behavior led to a falling out between mother and son. Tupac's love for hip-hop steered him away from a life of crime, for a while, at least. At 17, in the spring of 1989, he struck up a friendship with Layla Steinberg, who he met when she was holding poetry lessons in an Oakland park, according to Holler If You Hear Me, Searching for Tupac Shakur by Michael Eric Dyson. Already, Tupac had been obsessively writing poetry and convinced Steinberg, who had no music industry experience, to become his manager. She was eventually able to get Tupac in front of music manager Atron Gregory, who secured a gig for him in 1990 as a roadie and backup dancer for the hip-hop group Digital Underground. He soon stepped up to the mic, making his recording debut in 1991 on Same Song, which soundtracked the Dan Aykroyd comedy Nothing But Trouble. Tupac also appeared on Digital Underground's album Sons of the P that October. After Gregory also became Tupac's manager, he landed the up-and-coming rapper a deal with Interscope Records. A month after Sons of the P hit the stores came Tupacalypse Now, Tupac's debut album as a solo artist. Tupac often complained that he was misunderstood. "Everything in life is not all beautiful," he told journalist Chuck Phillips. "There is lots of killing and drugs. To me, a perfect album talks about the hard stuff and the fun and caring stuff. The thing that bothers me is that it seems like a lot of the sensitive stuff I write just goes unnoticed." As Tupac first began to achieve success as a rapper, Afeni was unaware of his career until friends told her. "I didn't know what was happening to my son," she said. "I thought, what am I doing?" Afeni became determined to break out of her drug addiction, which she finally did after moving back to New York City in 1991. Tupac and his mother later reconciled and remained close the rest of his life. Tupac, who only released 4 albums in his lifetime, has 21 albums to his name, 10 of which have earned platinum, multi-platinum, or diamond certification. As of July 2023, the Recording Industry Association of America listed Tupac as the 45th top-selling artist of all time by album sales and streaming figures. Worldwide, more than 75 million Tupac records have sold to date, according to Forbes. Tupac's first album as a solo artist was Tupacalypse Now, 1991. Although it didn't yield any hits, it sold a respectable 500,000 copies and established Tupac as an uncompromising social commentator on songs such as Brenda's Got a Baby, which narrates an underage mother's fall into destitution, and Soulja's Story, which controversially spoke of blasting a police officer and dropping the cop. The song was cited as a motivation for a real-life cop killing by a teenage car thief called Ronald Ray Howard, and was condemned by then U.S. Vice President Dan Quayle, who said, "There is absolutely no reason for a record like this to be published. It has no place in our society." With those words, Tupac's notoriety was guaranteed. In April 2017, Tupac was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, one of music's highest honors. He was the first solo hip-hop artist to be inducted and was selected in his first year of eligibility. In August 1992, Tupac was attacked by jealous kids in Marin City. He drew his pistol but dropped it in the melee. Someone picked it up, the gun fired, and a 6-year-old bystander, Quaid Walker Teal, fell dead. Although Tupac wasn't charged for Walker Teal's death, he was reportedly inconsolable. In 1995, Walker Teal's family brought a civil case against Tupac but settled out of court after an unnamed record company, thought to have been Death Row, offered compensation of between $300,000 to $500,000. In October 1993, Tupac shot and wounded 2 white off-duty cops in Atlanta, one in the abdomen and one in the buttocks, after an altercation. However, the charges were dropped after it emerged in court that the policeman had been drinking, had initiated the incident, and that one of the officers had threatened Tupac with a stolen gun. Tupac noted the case illustrated the misrepresentation of black men in America and the attitude of some police toward them, which he had been talking about in his music. What was portrayed as gun-toting, gangster behavior by a lawless individual turned out to be an act of self-defense by a young man in fear of his life. All the while, Tupac's star continued to rise. Unable to escape punishment entirely, Tupac went to jail for 15 days in 1994 for assaulting movie director Alan Hughes, who had fired him from the set of Menace to Society for being disruptive. He faced much more serious charges in February 1995, when Tupac was sentenced to between 1.5 and 4.5 years of jail time for sexually abusing a woman. The case related to an incident that had taken place in Tupac's suite in the New York Parker Meridien Hotel in November 1993. Tupac maintained that he hadn't raped the fan, though he confessed to the Vibe magazine journalist Kevin Powell that he could have prevented others who were present in the suite at the time from doing so. "I had a job, to protect her, and I never showed up," he said. While Tupac was in prison on rape charges, he was visited by Suge Knight, the notorious head of Death Row Records. Knight offered to post the $1.3 million bail Tupac needed to be released pending his appeal. The condition was that Tupac sign on to Death Row, which Tupac did. He was released from the high-security Dannemora facility in New York in October 1995. Even as he was glorifying an outlaw lifestyle for Death Row, Tupac was financing an at-risk youth center, bankrolling South Central sports teams, and setting up a telephone helpline for young people with problems, according to Vanity Fair. Tupac's debut for Death Row, the double-length album All Eyes on Me, came out in February 1996. With his new hip-hop group Outlawz debuting on the album, All Eyes on Me was an unapologetic celebration of the thug lifestyle, eschewing socially conscious lyrics in favor of gangsta funk hedonism and menace. Dr. Dre, who had pioneered G-Funk with NWA, produced the album's first single, California Love, which went to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and remains Tupac's best-known song. The third single from the album, How Do You Want It, also topped the chart. Within 2 months of its release, All Eyes on Me had been certified 5 times double platinum. It would eventually become diamond certified, reaching more than 10 million combined sales and streams. Before Tupac released his third album, he became a target. In November 1994, he was shot multiple times in the lobby of the Manhattan recording studio Quad by 2 young black men. Tupac believed his rap rival Biggie Smalls was behind the shooting, for which nobody has ever been charged. Smalls always denied he knew anything about the incident. In 2011, Dexter Isaac, a New York prisoner serving a life sentence for an unrelated crime, claimed music executive James Henchman Rosemond paid him to steal from Tupac and that he shot the rapper during the robbery. In June 1996, Tupac released a diss track, Hit 'Em Up, aimed at Biggie Smalls and his label boss at Bad Boy Records, Sean Diddy Combs. The song ratcheted up the tension between East and West Coast rap. In the inflammatory song, Tupac also spat venom at artists Lil' Kim, Junior Mafia, and Prodigy of Mobb Deep. Tupac and Biggie's rivalry was fast becoming hip-hop's most famous, and ugliest, beef. Along with his music, Tupac pursued an acting career. He appeared in several movies, among them starring roles alongside Janet Jackson in 1993's Poetic Justice and Mickey Rourke in 1990's Excess Bullet. After Tupac died, a collection of poems he wrote before becoming a rapper was also compiled and released in a 2000 book called The Rose That Grew from Concrete. The world moves fast and it would rather pass you by / than to stop and see what makes you cry, reads one verse he wrote as a teenager. Tupac briefly dated pop star Madonna. However, while serving time in prison in January 1995, Tupac wrote a letter to Madonna ending their relationship because of her race. For you to be seen with a black man wouldn't in any way jeopardize your career, if anything it would make you seem that much more open and exciting, he wrote. But for me, at least in my previous perception, I felt due to my image, I would be letting down half of the people who made me what I thought I was. Tupac married Keisha Morris in April 1995 while he was still in prison. The couple had met several months earlier at a nightclub when Morris was 20 and Tupac was 21. Their marriage was annulled 10 months later after Tupac was released from jail. The pair remained friends until his death. Soon after his marriage to Morris ended, Tupac began dating Kidada Jones. They had met at a club when Tupac apologized for insulting her father, Quincy Jones, for only dating white women. Jones was in Las Vegas with Tupac the night he was shot. Tupac died in Las Vegas on September 13, 1996, from gunshot wounds inflicted 6 days prior. He was 25. His murder remains unsolved. On September 7, Tupac was in Las Vegas with Suge Knight to watch a Mike Tyson fight at the MGM Grand Hotel. There was a scuffle after the bout between a member of the Crips gang and Tupac. Knight, who was involved with the rival Bloods gang, and members of his entourage piled in. Later, as a car that Tupac was sharing with Knight stopped at a red light, a man emerged from another car and fired 13 shots, hitting Tupac in the hand, pelvis, and chest. Tupac later died at the hospital. His girlfriend Kidada and his mother Afeni were both with him in his final days. Tupac's body was cremated. Members of his old band, Outlaws, made the controversial claim that they had smoked some of his ashes in honor of him. His mother announced she would scatter her son's ashes in Soweto, South Africa, the birthplace of his ancestors, on the 10th anniversary of his murder. She later changed the date to June 16, 1997, Tupac's 26th birthday as well as the anniversary of the 1976 Soweto uprising. Police have yet to determine who killed Tupac, and his death remains an open homicide case. In early 2018, BET aired an episode of Death Row Chronicles in which former Crips member Dwayne "Kef D" Keith Davis admitted that he was riding in the car with the man who killed Tupac. He declined to identify the shooter in the interview, revealing only that the shots came from the back seat, though he had earlier told federal investigators that the gun was in the hands of his now-deceased nephew Orlando Anderson. The revelation fueled the launch of a Change.org petition that called for the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department to declare the case cleared. It also led to rumors that new arrest warrants were pending, but the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department denied those rumors. In July 2023, news broke about a possible breakthrough in the investigation. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department executed a search warrant at a home in Henderson, Nevada, on July 17 in connection with the rapper's unsolved murder. Authorities haven't shared many details, such as what they were looking for and whether there's a suspect, citing the ongoing investigation. On September 29, Davis was arrested and charged with murder for his role in Tupac's death. He was indicted by a grand jury in Clark County, Nevada, and is in custody, according to prosecutors. Tupac died of gunshot wounds in 1996. However, conspiracy theories have raged ever since he was shot, because his murder has never been solved. Fans have speculated that Tupac faked his death. On his song, Life Goes On, Tupac rapped about his funeral. His song, I Ain't Mad at Cha, was released 2 days after he died. There have been several reported potential Tupac sightings since his death, including in 2012 by Kim Kardashian. In September 2017, music executive Suge Knight hinted that Tupac might be alive in an interview. When I left that hospital, me and Pac was laughing and joking. I don't see how someone can go from doing well to doing bad, he said, adding that, with Pac you never know, if he could be alive and living in secret somewhere. In November 2017, A&E aired the 6-part biography Presence, Who Killed Tupac, which followed civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump on his investigation into key theories behind Tupac's 1996 killing. The 60-year-old man arrested in the killing of rapper Tupac Shakur appeared in Las Vegas court for the second time Thursday, where a judge again delayed his arraignment on a murder charge for another 2 weeks. Dwayne Keith Davis, known as Kef D, was first expected to be arraigned 2 weeks ago on a charge of murder with use of a deadly weapon in a gang-related homicide stemming from the fatal September 7, 1996, shooting. In that hearing, Judge Tierra D. Jones agreed to delay his arraignment until Thursday so Davis could arrange for his attorney to be present. But when Davis appeared in court Thursday, shackled at his hands and feet and wearing a Navy prison jumpsuit, his attorney Ross Goodman again asked for a 2-week continuance for the arraignment and for confirmation of Davis's attorney of record. I'm going to give you 2 weeks, Jones said, but in 2 weeks we've got to get this case moving. Davis, next due in court on November 2, 2023, plans to plead not guilty, Goodman told reporters after the hearing. Davis is accused of orchestrating the shooting that cut short the life of Shakur, a 25-year-old trailblazer whose brief, prolific career cemented his legacy as one of the most influential hip-hop artists of all time. His untimely death added a grim layer to that mystique, and for years it had been the subject of conspiracy theories. In a news conference after Davis's initial court hearing, Clark County District Attorney Steve Wolfson stressed Davis is presumed innocent until proven otherwise. Shakur's slaying was the subject of a decades-long investigation by police that culminated this month with Davis's arrest following his indictment by a grand jury. He is the only suspect in the case still alive, police said. Physical evidence seized at his house and witnesses who have come forward in the last several years are expected to be used in the trial against Davis, Wolfson told CNN's Anderson Cooper. We wanted to gather as much supporting evidence as we could. We didn't want to proceed just with his admissions. Certain witnesses came forward in the last couple of years, Wolfson said. So we felt at this point, when we put it all together, that we had a strong enough case to charge Mr. Davis with murder with use of a deadly weapon with a gang enhancement. Davis is being held without bail, Wolfson said, and his office intends to continue to ask the judge not to set bail at arraignment. We believe under Nevada law and evidence in this case, that the proof is evident, Wolfson told reporters, and the presumption is great that he will be convicted of first-degree murder and that allows us to ask for a no-bail setting. Eddie Fale, Davis's Los Angeles-based personal attorney, declined to comment on the case but indicated he is working to assist his client in obtaining local representation in Nevada. For years, Davis has placed himself at the scene of the crime, stating publicly he was in the front seat of a white Cadillac when it pulled up alongside Shakur's car and shots rang out from the back seat. Shakur was shot 4 times and died 6 days later. Authorities have cast Davis as the alleged ringmaster of the plot to kill Shakur, which they contend was retaliation for an attack on Davis's nephew, Orlando Anderson, that stemmed from a broader conflict between 2 gangs in Compton, California. Shakur and Marion Suge Knight, then CEO of Death Row Records, were affiliated with the Mob Piru gang, said Jason Johansson, the homicide lieutenant of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. Davis and Anderson were affiliated with the Southside Compton Crips, Johansson said. At the time of the fatal shooting, Shakur was in Las Vegas to see Mike Tyson box at the MGM Grand Hotel, an event that also was attended by Davis and his nephew. While leaving the fight, members of Death Row Records kicked and punched Anderson near an elevator bank inside the MGM, Johansson said, playing surveillance footage that showed Shakur and Knight among the participants. Afterward, Davis began to devise a plan to obtain a firearm and retaliate against Suge Knight and Mr. Shakur, Johansson said. Davis got a gun, then got into the white Cadillac with Anderson, Terrence Brown and DeAndre Smith, the lieutenant said. Anderson and Smith were in the back seat, according to a copy of the indictment. And at some point, Davis provided the gun to the backseat passengers, Johansson said. Then, someone pulled the trigger, though the indictment doesn't say who. Either way, Davis was the shot caller for this group of individuals that committed this crime, Johansson said. He orchestrated the plan that was carried out to commit this crime. Anderson denied involvement to CNN before his death in a 1998 gang-related shooting. Davis confessed to his role in the crime in 2009, but authorities couldn't bring charges due to a proffer agreement, in which a suspect agrees to provide potentially useful information in an investigation that generally cannot be used as evidence against the suspect, a former detective on the case, Greg Kading, told CNN. The investigation was reinvigorated in 2018, Johansson said, in part thanks to Davis's own admissions to his involvement. Authorities felt it was their last opportunity to solve the case and bring charges, he said. Police in July searched the Henderson, Nevada, home of Davis's wife, looking for writings or documents related to Shakur's murder, according to an affidavit requesting a search warrant. They seized a copy of Davis's memoir, in which he wrote about street gang life and the shooting of Shakur, describing himself and Knight, in prison on a manslaughter charge in an unrelated case, as the only two living witnesses to the shooting. The recent developments involving Dwayne Keith Davis, also known as Kef D, have indeed raised hopes among those seeking answers in the Tupac Shakur murder case. Kef D's potential involvement and any information he may provide could be a significant breakthrough after more than 3 decades of mystery and speculation. With Kef D's cooperation or any information he may provide, there is a possibility that more names could be implicated or additional details could emerge regarding the events leading up to Tupac's murder. This development might help shed light on the motives and the individuals behind the attack. However, whether this development will ultimately bring the case to a conclusive end remains uncertain. The legal system can be complex, and successful prosecution often requires substantial evidence, corroboration, and witness testimony. Additionally, the passage of time can make it challenging to gather and verify evidence and eyewitness accounts. It is crucial to remember that not all leads or testimonies will necessarily lead to convictions. While there is hope that this time might be different, it's essential to approach such developments with caution and patience. The Tupac Shakur murder case has been marked by twists and turns over the years, and it may take time for any new information to be thoroughly investigated and for the legal process to unfold. The question of who killed Tupac has captivated the world for decades, and it's a question that remains on the minds of many. With each new development, there is renewed anticipation that answers may finally be found. Time will tell whether this latest development will lead to a resolution and bring closure to one of the most enduring mysteries in the world of music and crime.